Welcome everyone to the second part of our limited set review for the Alchemy Duskmourn expansion. As you said, this is a 30 card expansion that is only added to Arena, so it's digital only. And it's draftable alongside the main set for a week. It has been released on October 15th, and it's possible to draft it as a premier draft only, so it's only best of one from October 15th to October 22nd. So last time we got a glimpse of the white, blue and black cards. Now we're gonna go pretty quick. We have to sift through the red, green and gold cards and colorless. I guess this is an artifact. It's really good. It's this vehicle. We'll move on to that in a short notice. So first thing first, we closed last time asking ourselves this question: is this a cathartic reunion variant? No, it is not. It's a tormenting voice variant. It's a grab the prize variant, as a matter of fact. Anguished Recollection. For 2 mana, you got a sorcery. And the text says, discard a card. If you do, seek 2 cards that don't share a card type with the discarded card. So, is this card any good? It's similar to Grab the Prize. The added value is that if you discard a card, you get to seek 2 non-land cards. Maybe it's 2 creatures, maybe it's 2 enchantments. If you want lands, you can discard a creature, and then you get 2 lands. Maybe it's possible. So it's a little better than Grab the Prize in a sense that it's more possible to get you to the type of cards you want, and it really helps Delirium. So if you're red green or red black, it has added value in that sense, but obviously it's not that high of a pick in limited, so I will give this card a C- rating. And that's it. Let's move forward to a really good card, which is Crude Abattoir into Unsavory Kitchen. Unfortunately, I have no way to make this card horizontal. The magic.wizards.com page doesn't offer this possibility, so bear with me. I will read this card to you. For 1 mana, you get shock to a creature at sorcery speed. So Crude Abattoir, it's an enchantment room that says when you unlock this door, this room deals 2 damage to target creature. That part is really good. Remember, there's no 1 mana interaction in Duskmourn regular set. There's only Unable to Scream and Final Vengeance, but you have to sacrifice a creature on enchantment alongside it, so it's not really an effect that is plentiful. So this part alone is fine-ish, but the other part is really good. Whenever for 3 mana, Unsavory Kitchen, you get a room that says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to a creature, choose a creature card in your hand. It perpetually gets +2/+0 and gains haste. Perpetually. So, as I said last time, perpetually means that the text, the +2/+0 and haste in this case, is perpetually added to the card. It's overridden on the text of the card. So, whenever it changes zones, this subtext is added to a card in your hand. So when it changes zones, maybe it's casted, it goes to the battlefield, then it goes to the graveyard, it dies, it goes to the graveyard. It still retains the subtext that perpetually gets +2/+0. So if it gets reanimated down the line, it still has +2/+0. In a sense, it kinda reminds us of Enduring Courage, the rare Glimmer out of the regular set. Whenever another creature you control enters, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. This is an effect for 4 mana. You get a 3/3 tagged on top of the effect. This is slightly better in a sense that it's permanent. The card gets the boost permanently, and that thing is really good. That part of the card is really good, and it does trigger each and every time you deal non-combat damage to a creature. And there are other ways to deal non-combat damage to a creature. If we go to set Duskmourn and we search for color red, we get Boiler Vigil's Ripper at common. The most obvious effect is obviously Glassworks. The common room that deals 4 damage to a creature. When you deal 4 damage to a creature thanks to Glassworks, if the Unsavory Kitchen is on the battlefield, you get a permanent boost to one of your creature in your hand. This card is really good. It's not a bomb per se, but I will give this an A minus slash B plus rating in limited. If this is your rare, by all means, pick this card in limited and move on, unless there's another exceptionally good rare in the Duskmourn regular set slot. As I said, how is a Premier Alchemy draft structured? You get one and only one Alchemy card in each and every pack. And the Alchemy card is in lieu of a common, if I have to guess. Yes, it's a common. So you get a regular rare or a mythic from the regular set, and then commons, and one alchemy card. So it's that much more frequent in an alchemy draft to have multiple rares and mythics, regardless of play boosters and special guests and everything else that's going on in drafts these days. So this card really good. Let's move on. Eager Flame Guide. You have an uncommon enchantment creature, Raccoon Glimmer, a 3 mana 3/3. 3 mana gets you a 3/3. When it enters, add 3 colorless mana. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. When Eager Flame Guide dies, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast creature spells from among the exiled cards. So, what does this card do? For 3 mana you get a 3/3. Obviously, you're not really want to cast this card on curve, because you don't get to profit off of this bonus. Ideally you want to cast this card on turn 4 or turn 5 alongside a 3 or a 4 drop. In that case, you really get to squeeze the bonus, the ritual effect you're getting out of this. And if you do so, it kind of reminds me of another type of creature that has been present at common in some limited formats, but it's not really all that common to see this effect. There was a common in Cans of Tarkir recently that it's been released on Arena, which is this. Where is it? This, the Mardu War Shrieker. It's a 4 mana 3/3. If you raided this turn, if you attack this turn, you add Mardu colored mana. This card was fine. It was actually a C plus in Cans of Tarkir, and it was a 4 drop to begin with. This kinda is a 4 drop. It's kind of a 4 drop. But you also have the possibility of casting this on turn 3. Then obviously it does have another effect. When it dies, exile top 2 cards of your library, but you only get to cast creature cards. So, in a sense, Percussionist, the dice trigger of Percussionist, it's almost like it's a little bit better. Like exiling the top card of your library and you get to cast it regardless, it's a little better than exiling the top 2 and you only get to cast creatures, because there's a real possibility of whiffing, especially in a more grindier deck like black red. Black red does have a lot of non-creature spells, a lot of like enchantments, disturbing mirth, and whatever, glassworks, and all of that, and removals, instant and sorcery, and scorching dragon fires, etc., etc. So, how good is this card in limited? Pretty fine. I will give this a C plus rating. By all means, pick this. Do not pick this over most rares in the format. Moving on. What do we have here? Green, Chittering Illuminator. For 3 mana, you get a 3/3 enchantment creature Squirrel Glimmer. As long as Chittering Illuminator is at the top of your library, you may look at it any time and you may cast it. So this is an arena only, a digital only effect, because in paper you're not supposed to have a glimpse at the top of your card. So if you have this card on top of your deck, Arena is showing it to you. So it's face up. And the only way this card could work is obviously only on Arena. As long as the top card of your library is a creature card, you may look at it any time and you may cast it. So in a sense, it's like an ogre. How's it called? The card for from Innistrad, Minotaunt. Ogre something, autumn something. This, the Ogre of Autumn. You may look at the top card of your library any time. If you have Coven, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. This card was fine-ish. It was like a B plus in limited. This is a slightly bigger body, and you get to cast this from the top of your library. So it's fine-ish. I will give this a B plus. It's fine. You really don't get to leverage the glimpse of nature, elf ball part of the card really all that much, because it's not that common to have in Duskmourn a deck that has like 18, 19, 20 creatures, so you get to go runner, 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 creature, 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 and unload the top of your deck. There's a lot of in a deck construction of a Duskmourn limited deck. You have a lot of other types other than creatures. So it's really uncommon to see a deck with 20, 21 creatures. In that sense, you're not really going to leverage this effect all that much, but even if you get one creature off the top, it already has replaced it. It's a 3/3 that draws a card for 3 mana, so that part is already good. And it's an enchantment to top it off. So if you had Delirium synergies, Delirium purposes, considerations, you get to have an enchantment creature to the graveyard, the Squirrel Glimmer. So this card is fine. I will give this a solid B. So if you see this second to third pick, that's the timing I will pick this card up in a limited draft. So, going forward, we have Harrowing Swarm. 2 mana for a sorcery, Manifest Dread. Then each face down creature you control gains. This permanent costs 2 less to turn face up. And when this permanent is turned face up, if it's a creature, put a +1/+1 counter to it. So it's a fusion between the titular card, Manifest Dread. So if you go set Duskmourn color green, so the actual factual Manifest Dread sorcery, in that it's a 2 mana sorcery that manifests Dread. That part is basically the same, but you also get a discount, and you also get a +1/+1 counter in it if you get to flip it. So that part reminds us of the blue-green uncommon Growing Dread. It's an enchantment with flesh for Simic mana. When it enters, it manifests. When you turn a permanent face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's like those two effects stapled, one on top of each other, and you also get a discount for your troubles. So, for starters, it's Manifest Dread, which already is a really good uncommon. This card is like a C plus in regular Duskmourn, and it's power crept. It's that card but better. It's that card, but strictly better. So, how to value this card? This card is probably a B, probably B plus. It's an effect you're always going to want to have in your green decks. So, I I don't see myself picking this like first pick. Maybe it's more like a second to third. It's a 2 for 2 that has the possibility to flip like a 5-drop on turn 3. Maybe if you get to manifest like a Slavering Branch Snapper, you can flip this into an 8/6 on turn 4. That part is busted, but you kinda have to get lucky in a sense. You can manifest a Bashful Beastie and flip this on turn 3. And it's a 6/4 that when it 6/5 when it dies you manifest Dread again. And the effect is added to each face down creature you control. So maybe you play this on turn 5 and you already have like 2 manifest Dread on the board and you get 2 discounts. So you get to add like 4 colorless mana for free. This card is really, really good. So by all means, pick this. I will give this probably it's a B plus, borderline A minus, because it's so much power for 2 mana. How is this supposed to be? Only in Alchemy you can get to this. So moving forward, this card is an A plus, probably S tier. 2 mana, enchantment, it's a mythic, so it is supposed to be this. Whenever Verdant Dread or another permanent you control named Verdant Dread enters, manifest Dread. That part is fine. We have 2 mana, 2/2s for days in this format. But for 5 mana, conjure a card named Verdant Dread onto the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So for 5 mana, you get to conjure out of thin air a copy of this onto the battlefield. And since it's called Verdant Dread, so and the card says whenever Verdant Dread or another permanent you control named Verdant Dread enters manifest Dread, now you have 2 copies onto the battlefield, so you get to manifest Dread twice. And then on turn 6 you pay 5 mana again, you conjure another copy of this, and they all trigger, so you get 3 more manifest Dreads. And it snowballs from there. Either you win in like 3 turns or you get so many manifest Dreads that you mill out. So I guess the thing is pick your Chandeliers together with this card. The Chandelier is the 6 mana 4/4 flying filler in Duskmourn that prevents you from self-milling by putting a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your its owner your library active only as a sorcery. This card is phenomenal. It's totally busted. Many times while drafting Alchemy Duskmourn, your opponent will go turn 2 Verdant Dread, you groan, you don't have a disenchant effect, and you flat out may already concede the game. If you're not aggro, you don't go Mayhem on turn 4, Arabella Mayhem, and kill your opponent on turn 5. You're going to face a level of inevitability that's not really all that achievable in a regular Duskmourn draft. So, this card S tier, pick this over basically any rare of the regular set. Like if you have this Conundrum, Verdant Dread or Swarm Weaver, the answer is simple. You have to pick Verdant Dread over Swarm Weaver. Now, moving forward, Warzone Guard. For 3 mana, you get a 3/3 Survivor. It enters the battlefield tapped, and it has Survival. So, at the beginning of your second main phase, if Weary Zone Guard is tapped, return up to 1 target land card from graveyard to the battlefield. Weary Zone Guard perpetually gets +1/+1. So, how does this card play? This card is a 3/3 for 3 that enters the battlefield tapped. That part is not that good. It's a 3/3 for 3 that cannot block for a turn. But it's a self-enabler. So, it enters the battlefield tapped, and at the very first turn, it's not really a 3/3 because it's a 4/4. It immediately triggers and immediately perpetually gets a +1/+1 counter. So it's really a 4/4 for 3 and then enters the battlefield tapped. So it's a Loxodon Smiter that has the downside of not blocking for a turn, but from turn 4 onwards, it has to be blocked or it keeps growing. So in a sense, it kind of reminds me of the Storyteller, the green-white golden common from Duskmourn. This is a 3/3 that keeps growing itself or the other creatures. This card is a side grade. It can only grow itself, but it starts as a 4/4, but it enters the battlefield tapped. And the part that you get to return up to untarget land card is really flavor text for the most part. Because how many times do you have a Terramorphic Expanse in the graveyard? If you're going an aggressive Terramorphic Expand. If you have an aggressive green deck, maybe you're green-white, because if you want to have a bunch of survivors in your deck, probably you're green-white. But part is, this card is not it's not a golden commons. You're not bottlenecked into playing this only in green-white and green-white only. You can play this in green-black, for example, green-black Delirium, and it's totally fine. And maybe you play, say, its name on turn 2, you mill 2 lands, and all of a sudden this card ramps you from 3 to 5. So in that sense, I think this card is probably better, definitely better than the Storyteller, the golden common that I just cited. That card was not all that great in regular Duskmourn. That was a like C-level card, mostly because green-white is not that great of an archetype in regular Duskmourn. It's probably the color combination that has the lowest win rate out of all 10. It's a toss-up between green-white and black-white. This card is single color, so you're gonna pick this and play it in basically any green color combination that you might go into. It's good in green-white, it's good in green-black, it's good in green-red. Maybe in green-red, the fact that you're returning a land to the battlefield and you don't have Delirium anymore might be a downside, but also green-red has good 5 and 6s, so you ramping up a turn ahead, ramping those a turn ahead is really good. So this card is probably a B level uncommon. You're not gonna pick this over most rares, but if this is getting past you turn pick 2 or pick 3, I think it's a solid pickup. Moving forward, multicolored. We have basically a multicolor card for each color combination, starting with Effie, the fast learner for Selesnya mana, a colorless green and a white. You have a 3/3 with Enlist and Survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Effie is tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control, then seek a Survivor card with mana value less than or equal to the number of tapped creature you control. So, this card is really good. I'm not gonna say this card is busted, Verdant Joend is busted. This card is really good. It's definitely a reason to go Selesnya. I think this card is better than Rip, the other gold rare. Selesnya gold rare from Duskmourn. Obviously, I have to select the set. It's Rip from Duskmourn. Yeah, this card. A 4/4 that searches for a 1, 2, maybe 3 creature if it survives, but it's a 4 mana 4/4, and 3 mana 3/3 is better than 4 mana 4/4 if you want to tap your creature and have that survive for a turn. It also has Enlist. For any of you that have not played Dominaria United, Enlist was a keyword from the Dominaria United that says whenever you attack with this creature, you may tap another untapped creature you control that is not summoning sick. So another untapped creature that you have not cast this very particular turn. If you do, this card, Effie Fast Learner, gets +X +0 where X is the power of the tapped creature. So, not only this card grows in power, but not in toughness, but also it can trigger survival if the creature, the untapped creature you go and tap with the enlist ability is a survivor in and on itself, and also it self-enables itself because the creature is tapped. The creature that helps with enlist part, it's tapped, so it gets the bonus after the second main phase. This card is really good. You're not gonna have a lot of survivor cards in your deck. If you go green-white, and this card is only ever good in green-white, do not splash this card if you are any other green color combination. But if you are in green-white, you're gonna have a lot of survivors. There are a lot of survivors at common and uncommon. This is a common. This is a common. And that's it. There's only 2 common survivors in the whole set. I would have guessed there were more. There are a lot of uncommons though. This. Those are all uncommons. This. So, if you do, this is a 3/3 for 3 that grows your whole team, and then you get to draw a card. So that part reminds you of Rip, but you're guaranteed a card because you're probably getting a 2-drop, and if you're going Survivor, you're gonna have your House Cartographers and Acrobatic Cheerleaders in your deck. I would be surprised if you don't have those. So this card is pretty fine. I will give this an A- rating, in that it's a creature that it's easy to remove from the board, but if your opponent doesn't have a Scorching Dragonfire, or it doesn't have many blockers to toss in front of Effie, it might be snowballing. So it's definitely a high pickup. Now, moving forward, we have Enduring Friendship. A 2-mana 2/1 enchantment creature Other Glimmer. Yeah, the return of the others. It has double team, and whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, creatures you control that are others, there are no other others in Duskmourn, so this is more of a constructed plant for alchemy, and or enchantments. Enchantments are aplenty in Duskmourn, so that part is more relevant in limited. Get +1/+1 until end of turn, so it gives prowess, semi-prowess, to all of your enchantment creatures, and it gives prowess to itself. When Enduring Friendship dies, if it was a creature, returning to the battlefield under its owner control, it's an enchantment. This is the Glimmer rider that is already stapled onto every rare Glimmer in a regular Duskmourn, and it has double team. Maybe you're wondering, if you don't play Alchemy regular, what is double team? Double team means that if this card is attacking, it only has to attack. Whenever this card attacks, you conjure a copy of this card into your hand for free. Both copies, though, they lose double team. So you only get to create a copy to trigger this effect once for both copy. So you have an Enduring Friendship, you attack with this, you get an Enduring Friendship copy into your hand, and that's it. They perpetually lose double team. So even if you bounce this to your hand, or if this dies and you get this back from a graveyard, or if this gets shuffled into your deck and you happen to draw this 10 turns later, it does not have double team anymore, forever. It perpetually loses double team. So, it's a 2/1 that gives you a copy of itself if it attacks. That part is fine. There are not a lot of instant sorcery spells in blue-red, because blue-red is the room archetype. So the effects that will be available as instant sorcery spells are tucked onto rooms instead. So if you go type room in Duskmourn, you have like unsummon, now it's a room. You have 4 damage for 3 mana to a creature. Now it's a room. It's not tap a creature, draw 3 cards. Those are instant and sorcery in other limited formats. Now these are rooms. So there are not a lot of instant sorceries. There's Scorching Dragonfire and type instance. There's Scorching Dragonfire, there's Glimmerburst, there's Get Out, those are all solid playables. There's Twist Reality, there's Vanish from Sight. There are some instant sorceries in Blue-Red, but you can't draft a deck with 10 to 12 instant sorceries in regular Duskmourn and Alchemy Duskmourn by an extent. So Duskmourn doesn't really lend itself as a format to build a Spellslinger deck. So you're not gonna trigger the semi-prowess part really all that often. But even as a 2-1, even as a Goblin Piker that might be attacking as a 3-2, or even menacing to attack with as a 3-2, and it doubles, so it's not really a Goblin Piker, it's 2 Goblin Pikers that both trigger one off of the other. So the play pattern is playing this in turn 2, then it attacks. Your opponent doesn't really want to block this, or it dies into an enchantment, so you get 2 damages in, you have an Enduring Friendship into your hand, another copy, then you cast the copy on turn 3, post-combat, and then you have 2 of these on turn 4, and maybe you have an instant sorcery in your hand, so you attack with both, your opponent maybe blocks one of these with a Manifest Dread, you cast a Vanish from Sight, or you cast a Glimmerburst on turn 4, and they both trigger off of each other. You have 2 attacking for 3s, and one gets to eat a Manifest Dread, the other gets to connect for 4, and maybe this is an ideal scenario, maybe this is all speculation, but it doesn't seem all that far-fetched as a play pattern. So this card is not a bomb, no, by any means, but it's better than a C level card. That part is obvious. I will put this in a B tier limited card. Pick this rather highly. If you're gonna go blue-red specifically, do not splash this card. This card is only ever good in turn 2, I have to guess. So if you're going blue-red rooms, this card is more than fine. If you're going blue-green manifest, if you have to stretch your mana base to accommodate this, no, do not do this. And maybe many of you don't really like blue-red rooms, so but blue-red rooms tend to be kinda open on draft tables nowadays, and it's not all that performing as an archetype, so maybe you have the possibility of picking this turn 5 or turn 6, and at that point you're really getting a lot of value in your pick. Now, moving forward, fear of change. This card, brace yourselves, fasten your seatbelts. This card is something. It's really something. For 2 mana, you get a 2/3 enchantment creature Nightmare in Simic colors. When this creature enters or dies, exile another creature you control, and it's mandatory. It's not up to. You play 2 mana, if you have another creature, you have to exile it. Maybe it's your Tiver. You have to exile your busted mythic rare. If you do, conjure a duplicate of a random creature card with mana value X onto the battlefield, where X is 2 plus the exiled creature's mana value. And you might be saying, Kami, what is random? What does it mean, conjure a duplicate of a random creature card? Yes, it's Momirvig. The random creature card is randomly selected out of the whole arena pool, tracing back to the very first set released, tracing back to Kaladesh Remastered, Amonkhet Remastered, Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan, 2018 sets. It's random. It's totally random. You exile a 3-drop, you can get any 5 out of the arena playable pool. It might be anything. It might be a busted mythic. Maybe it's a wingmate rock. Who knows? Might be anything. Now, talking about power levels, is this card any good? Yes, even if the creature is random, you're gonna get a creature that is X plus 2. So you're gonna get a jump of 2 in mana value. You exile a 3, you're gonna get a 5. Exile a 2, you're gonna get a 4. And usually, you don't need me to tell you this, 4s are better than 2s, and 5s are better than 3s. So, this card is more than fine. The baseline is a 2-3 for 2. And it's already good. It's not Bookworm. that is the broken Simic busted 2-3 for 2 in Simic colors. But this card is good in any stage of the game. It's fine-ish on turn 2. I might say it's at its worst on turn 2 because you don't get the effect unless you have played a 1-drop. I don't even know if there are all that many green and blue 1-drop in this format. It's at its best on turn 6, ideally, where you get to exile your 5 to jump to 7, but you have to be wary because there's Phage coded on Arena, so beware of exiling your 5-drop. You might get a Phage and die straight away because you haven't casted it from your hand, so you lose the game. It's fun. It might not be good. No, it is good. It's a B+ level card. It might not be good, but it's definitely fun. You're joining an Alchemy draft. You're supposed to have fun. It's only there for a week. So, if you're not having fun for a week, maybe it's a beating. Maybe your opponent casts this and reveals Baneslayer Angel, and you get beaten to death by a Baneslayer Angel. Maybe not. Who knows? Pick this card really highly and play this card in your deck. Now, Gilded Ambusher, a Rakdos 3-drop. So for 1, a black and a red, you get an enchantment creature, Lizard Glimmer. I don't know if you have noticed, but those are all the Blumbarrow types. There's no type all support for these tribes in regular Duskmourn. Those are all constructed plants from the Alchemy metagame. So this has been dubbed the new how's it called? New braids from Dominaria United. It's a 3 mana 4/2 that whenever Gilded Ambusher attacks, you may sacrifice another non-land permanent. When you do, each opponent exiles a non-land non-token permanent they control and a random non-land card from their library. Then Gilded Ambusher deals damage to them equal to the total mana value of the cards exiled this way. So, it's a symmetrical effect, but it's not really all that symmetrical. In 2 ways. First thing first, you exile another non-land permanent. It doesn't say non-token, so you can exile a token. So, maybe you exile... I don't know. Is there any way to make tokens in regular Duskmourn in those colors? Color black? Apart from spiders and zombies from the Defiled Crypt? There are not really all that many, to be fair. And it exiles, so you don't get any value out of Innocuous Rat. But there are some tokens in the set. So, it's asymmetrical for 2 reasons. First, you get to exile a token, and your opponent has to exile a non-land non-token. So, a permanent of mine for a permanent of yours, but mine has the possibility of being a little worse than yours. Plus, they exile a random non-land card from their library. And that might seem inconsequential. I mean, it's basically akin to your opponent mills a card, but it's a non-land. So, your opponent's deck gets diluted If you only get one trigger off of this, it's not really that important. But if you're starting to get 2 or 3 of these triggers, it kind of stacks. Like removing 3 non-land cards out of your opponent's library, it starts having an effect. Then you get to deal damage equal to the total mana value. So it's not really all that uncommon for this card to go face for 4 to 5 every single time. Your opponent is really hard pressed to trade this card. I mean, it's really easy to trade. It's an Alpine Grizzly. It's a 4/2 for 3. But even if you get one activation out of this, and you get to trade your worst permanent for the worst permanent of your opponent, and you get to dome your opponent for 5, it's already really good. Now, this card is definitely not an A tier level card, but it's more than fine. I will give this a B level, kinda, card, just only because it has 2 toughness. That's the only real downside. It has 2 toughness, it enters the battlefield, it attacks, you get 1 trigger out of this, and then it is supposed to go to the graveyard. It's not really supposed to stick permanently and get 2, 3, 4 triggers out of this. If it was a 1/4, the card would have been much better than this. But as it stands, maybe you have a removal for your opponent creatures, you get the first attack for 4, and you get to dome your opponent for 5, then it starts to be a lot of damage. So this card is good, could have been better, it's not really a bomb, but still, if you're Rakdos, pick this rather highly, it's a B level card. Now, this card is uncommon, it's an uncommon, yes, it's totally busted. This is an A plus probably level tier card. For 2 mana, it's a 2/2 flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, a random creature card in your hand perpetually gets a +X/+X, where X is the amount of life you gain. But Kami, there's not a lot of life gain in Duskmourn. Life gain cards are few and far between, and usually those are all unplayable. Yes, but did you not get the part where this is a 2/2 flying lifelink for 2? That part is already phenomenal. It's a Vaporkin that has 2 toughness and it has lifelink. It's already unraceable. You play this on turn 2, your opponent says, okay, I'm not gonna win this race anymore. On top of this, if it connects only once, you play this on turn 2. On turn 3 you attack, you connect for 2. It's a Fear of Infinity that can block, and you play this on turn 2. So, you attack with your Fear of Infinity that can block, which is already power crapped. You gain life, a random creature card in your hand, it doesn't really matter that it's random. You're gonna get the effect, and the effect is busted. Perpetually gets +X/+X. So forever, it gets overridden on the card, it gets +2/+2. If this doesn't get any bonuses, this card is totally busted. So all of a sudden, your Grizzly Bear in hand, it's a 4/4. Randomly. And heaven forbid you have multiples of this, and they triggers off of each other. They snowball in such a way that it's not possible to overcome. This is basically a removal check. You play this on turn 2, you ask your opponent, do you have a removal? Yes, you get to play Magic. No, you flat out, you can concede. Scoop already. I played this on turn 2. Why are you not scooping? You have to, you're supposed to. And in this part, it's better than Bookworm. Like, Bookworm turn 2, it's a looting effect. You get to draw and discard a card, alright. Maybe turn 3, you play a Manifest to draw another card. Yes. You got to draw 2 cards and discard 1. You're behind, your opponent played Bookworm turn 2, and you're far behind on card advantage. But you're not lost yet. You play this on turn 2, your opponent plays this on turn 2, you don't have a removal, you might as well already concede the game, because your opponent is gonna play a 3/3 for 3 on turn 3, that all of a sudden it's a 5/5 for 3. At that point you have to top deck a removal for the 5/5, but you're gonna lose to the 2/2 flying for 2 flying lifelink from the Fury Infinity. So this card is totally busted. It's a A plus, even if it's an uncommon. If you see this pick 6, then it means your opponents in the table don't really are not really all that great at assess new cards power levels. And then you should pick this, even if you are a green white, for example, and splash this card in green white. Definitely go Abzan. Maybe you're a Rakdos. Splash white, go Mardu and play this card. Now, moving forward, it's a mythic, Mangle Soul Rager. 3 mana needs that colors, flying, it's a 1/4 flying. When Mangle Soul Rager enters, what does it do? When it enters, switch the power and toughness of each creature on the battlefield. You get a 12-time boon with whenever a creature you control enters, switch its power and toughness. And for good measure, it has cycling. I don't know the cycling part, if it's gonna be relevant or not. I guess the catch is you don't really want to switch power and toughness, so this card doesn't have any use. It's actually detrimental, so you're better off cycling it and draw another card than casting this. But if you do, you get a 4/1 flyer, because it enters and switches its own power and toughness. So it's a 4/1 flyer for 3, and you get a 12-time boon. So for anyone of you who is not familiar with alchemy, what does boon mean? Boon, it's a kind of an emblem. So you get 12 emblems stacked with this effect. Whenever a creature enters, one of those emblems is consumed, power and toughness is switched, and now you have 11 kind of an emblem. That is boon. Boon, why am I saying emblems? Because boons are not interactable with. You know you have those boons, but there's not any way to remove those, to make a player lose boons, so they're there. You have to keep track of those. Now obviously this is a digital only card, so Arena is keeping track of those for you. Now, this is a really tough effect to value, to try and understand the power level of. The baseline is this is a 4/1 flyer for 3, which is good. This card is totally capable of winning games on its own. You clock your opponent for 4 in the air starting on turn 4. That part is really good. If your opponent doesn't have a removal, if your opponent doesn't have a Fear or Lost Teeth to sacrifice for value, to remove this card from the battlefield, this card is gonna win games on its own. Now, how much the switching power and toughness part is really valuable in Duskmourn, I don't really know. First thing first, you have to see color red and blue to see which creatures get better or worse if they switch power and toughness. So Fear of Being Hunted gets a little worse off of this. So it acts kind of like a protection from your opponent's Fear of Being Hunted. And then thinking of your own creature, Most Valuable Slayer becomes better. So your own Most Valuable Slayers becomes better. They become 4/2 with first strike, so there are 5/2 first strike attackers starting on turn 5. Oh, and I guess your Rampaging Soul Ragers get that much better. Get that much better? They become 7/1s. Which is better, a 4/4 if you have 2 rooms, or a 7/1? Probably a 4/1. It's random 8 against Ripchain Razorkin, becomes a 3/5, and it gets blocked. So Mangle Soul Rager becomes blocked the Ripchain Razorkin regardless. I don't know. I don't know how much this switch power and toughness effect is really all that valuable. But for starters, of 3 mana for 1 flyers, with the ability to cycle this in the late game for a maybe more relevant card, is already really good. So pick this card highly. Maybe it's A minus, A minus minus, B plus level card. If you are in rooms, pick this. If you are in another color pair, probably you should still pick this. If you're a blue-green and you have some amount of fixing, I think you're supposed to splash this and go Teamer to accommodate this card. Now, moving forward, Mischievous Lookout. 2 mana for a 2-1 enchantment glimmer, it's a rat. So, yet again, a reminder of Bloom Barrow typos. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a non-creature, non-aura permanent spell from your graveyard. If you do, it perpetually becomes a 2-1 rat creature in addition to its other types. So, you can cast once during each of your turns, you may cast either a non-aura enchantment or an artifact. Or a planeswalker, I guess. But there's only Kaito in the set, so it's not all that common. For free, so it's a Lurrus type effect. But it doesn't cast creatures. So it's not really Lurrus. It's Lurrus, but much less busted. Not even discounting the companion part. I'm not talking about the companion part. The part that was obviously it's busted. So in black and white, how many or color white? This is the how you're supposed to do this. How many artifact and enchantments are gonna be there? Type enchantments, enchantment. And how many enchantments go to the graveyard? Because a lot of them are rooms, and they stay to the battlefield. There's Cracked Skull, but it's an aura, so you're not supposed to do this. This is an enchanted creature, so you're not supposed to record this. Tira Armor is an enchantment. Those are all enchantment creatures. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of enchantments that go to the graveyard for value. Like, you have to manually cast a room and sacrifice the room to Final Vengeance. And then you have to play this, and then you have to play the room from your graveyard for value, and have the room enter the battlefield as a 2-1 rat. It's a little clunky. There's nowhere to run. Nowhere to run is really good. If you can somehow recur nowhere to run, but the part is, you can only recur this once. Because once you have played this from your graveyard, it perpetually becomes a 2-1 rat creature. So even if it dies, the 2-1 nowhere to run, you cannot cast the nowhere to run again, because now it's a creature. So it's not possible to recur this anymore. Maybe your opponent destroys your Trapped in the Screen, and you get to recur your Trapped in the Screen. This card is not really all that great. This card is a 2-1 for 2 that once in a blue moon can get a nice bonus. And by nice bonus, I mean 2 for 1 your opponent, and at that point life is good and the game is great and you're gonna win the game. But compare this to this, which is the Orzhov card you're gonna pick? First pick, the uncommon one or the rare one? It's the uncommon one, and it's not even close to being close. This card is probably a C level card. It's a 2-1 that you have to build this around. There are some artifacts that you can build this card around. There's a Bear Trap, but Bear Trap is really not that great of a card. You're not gonna include this in your deck, in your limited deck, on its own. And now you're gonna include this because you have Mischievous Lookout? I mean, yes, obviously, now you have 2 Bear Traps for the price of 1. Now you have 2 fun footages for the price of 1. Glimmerlight, you're gonna play this regardless, so. But how many times is Glimmerlight gonna be destroyed and go to the graveyard in a regular limited game? Not a lot. Same is true for Saw. Those are all creatures, so those are not considered. And then there's keys to the house. So I guess maybe you go black, white, splash, and you enable your splash with keys to the house, and now keys to the house might be returned from the graveyard as a 2-1. that seems all wishful thinking. So don't really pick this card really all that high. Don't stretch your deck and include worse cards just to enable this synergy. Now, what's next? Poltergeist. For 3 mana in Rakdos colors, you get a 3/1 spirit with word pay to life, so it's the same word cost of a Gev, the rare Rakdos lizard in Bloombarrow. Whenever a Poltergeist, see, they made the pun. It's not Poltergeist, it's Poltergeist. Whenever Poltergeist attacks, heist target opponent's library. For any of you that do not play Alchemy regularly, what does heist mean? Heist is the most grown towards mechanic in the whole Alchemy format ever. Heist is highly despised by each and every one Alchemy player. I personally really like Heist. I love this mechanic. Heist means that whenever you heist your opponent, you are faced with a choice. Arena randomly selects 3 non-land cards out of your opponent's deck. Randomly. So, Arena chooses 3 cards from your opponent's deck. Your opponent doesn't get to see those. You only get to see those. So, you're represented with those. You have to choose one of those 3. You get to choose one of those 3. You choose one. It goes into exile, into your exile. The other 2 get shuffled back. So, you choose one, and now you can cast this card. Not for free, you still have to pay those costs, but you get to pay those costs with rainbow mana. So your card, your land, pay for any color you want. So you exile a Selesnya 5-drop, you can cast those with Rakdos mana. That is the shtick. Why is Iced really hated? Because you exile a card out of your opponent's library. Maybe, just maybe, you exile a bomb. Iced first was introduced in Outlaws at Thunder Junction Alchemy. It was not all that uncommon to ice your opponent's library and you reveal a Bonipal. All of a sudden, you have a Bonipal, and your opponent doesn't have a Bonipal anymore. Because you exile it from your opponent's library, out of your opponent's library. So, moving back to us, Poltergeist, a 3 mana 3/1. How good is this card? It's really frail. It dies to anything. As a matter of fact, it dies to Glimmer creature, Glimmer enchantment tokens from Glimmerlight. So you play this on turn 3, you attack, and it's supposed to trade with anything. There's basically no way to have this creature survive a combat apart from giving it first strike with most valuable Slayer on turn 4. But apart from this, it's basically gonna trade with anything. How good is trading with a 3 or a 2-drop and icing your opponent for 3? And the answer is really good. Iced was really hated because it was repeatable. You iced every single turn your opponent's library, and all of a sudden your opponent is depleted of any good cards in their library, and they cannot win the game anymore because their card quality is too much diluted. But iced once for power level, completely fine. Completely fine. That doesn't mean this card is not good. That card is really good. But it's more like a B+ level card. It's a 3-drop that trades in combat and draws you a card. But you get to choose which card of the 3. And your opponent doesn't have access to that particular card anymore for the rest of the game. Unless you play a creature, one of your opponent's creature, and those gets bounced to your opponent's hand, and blah blah blah, etc. etc. This card is fine, it's B+. Don't stretch your mana base to accommodate this, but if you are Rakdos already, and if you have recursion, if you have some ways to get this back from a graveyard, by all means, this card becomes a really, really good card. Now, moving forward, Unnatural Summons. 3 mana in Simic colors. For a sorcery, if you weren't the starting player, this spell costs 1 less to cast, Manifest Dread, Rebound. For any of you that Didn't play Dragons of Tarkir. What does Rebound means? Rebound means that when you cast this card from your hand, the sorcery from your hand, it gets exiled, and then at the beginning of your next upkeep, you get to cast this card again for free. So, it's really a 2-for-1 for starters. I don't know why Alchemy Duskmourn has this obsession for Manifest Dread for 2. This is the third effect that we are seeing today. I really like this mechanic if you weren't the starting player, because it puts you and your opponent on a even field. If you're on the play, this card costs 3. If you're on the draw, this card costs 2 and becomes much better. If you cast this on the draw for 2 mana, this card is obviously phenomenal. It's Manifest Dread, the titular card, the actual factual Manifest Dread sorcery, but you get to do this twice and becomes phenomenal. Now, is this a card worth splashing? Depends on how much does that splash cost you. If you have 2 Spinal Centipedes and 2 Terramorphic Expanse, and you're maybe green-black splashing blue, and you have 6 free blue source in your deck, yes, at that point, by all means, splash this card. If you're gonna include toss up 1 or 2 random islands in your green-white deck, at that point, no, not really. The effect is good, but it's good if it's played on curve. It's also good if you play this on turn 5, but it doesn't win the game on its own. It's not the power level where I might include this and really stretch my mana base to accommodate this. If you are green-blue, obviously, you have to pick this card really highly, like first to second pick. And there's really not that much more to be said about this card, except it's a fine card. Now, moving forward. 3 mana, Valiant Emberkin in Boros mana, 1 a red and a white for an enchantment creature Mouse Glimmer. Of note, there are no other mice. In Duskmourn, you get a 1/1 haste. Whenever Valiant Emberkin enters or attacks, target creature you control perpetually gets +1/+0. If a creature you control, becoming the target of a spell or ability, causes a trigger ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. This is definitely an alchemy constructed plant. It even says this in the name. It's a Valiant Emberkin. Did you get this? It's Valiant. It has Valiant. So it's a mechanic from the set past, the set prior. This part of the card, if your creature you control becoming the target of a spell or ability because of the trigger ability, it's basically non-existent. I think there are no cards in the whole Duskmourn set that cares about this effect. This is obviously a Valiant from Bloombarrow reference, and it's supposed to play good in constructed with those cards, with the mice from Bloombarrow. So, discounting this part, how much is good? The other part, a 3 mana, 1/1 haste, and whenever it enters or attacks, target creature gets perpetually pumped on attack. That part is fine-ish. Like, the usual play pattern is you play this on turn 3, it triggers, it gives itself a +1/+0, then it attacks, it gives itself a +1/+0, again, now it's a 3/1 hasty attacker. How good is a 3/1 hasty attacker? Not a lot, it's supposed to trade, and that's it. But if it survives somehow, like maybe you play a combat trick, you play this, your opponent blocks with a 2/2, you play jump scare, you trade jump scare with your opponent's 2/2, and then this attacks next turn, again is a 3/1, maybe your opponent is a 4/4 blocker, and this gives a +1/+0 to itself, now it's attacking as a 4/1, your opponent is in a tough choice, maybe doesn't really want to trade a 4/1 for a 4/4, maybe your opponent takes this attack, then next turn you get to pump another creature, maybe you have a 2/3 clown, now all of a sudden it's a 3/3 and it's that much better. I mean, there are a lot of things that have to go right for this card to be good, but the baseline is a 3/1 haste attackers on turn 3. And that part is fine. Fine in the sense that it's a C-level card, and not that much better than that. Now, obviously, this card is a little touch better than a 3-1 for 3 on turn 3. But the thing is, it can only be played on Boros. And that's it. Like, if you're a Boros, play this card, obviously. Pick this card rather highly. And by highly, I really mean the third, fourth, fifth pick, maybe fourth to fifth. It's its natural habitat, not that much higher than that. But if you want to stretch your mana base for this, absolutely not. If you're not Boros, don't even consider this card. This card is a 3-1 hasty for 3, and that's it. So I will give this a C+, maybe B minus grade. Not that much better than that. Now, moving forward. 3 mana in Azorius color. Azorius, best color combination in regular Duskmourn. So already it gets half a grade more just only because of that. For a 2-3 rather, enchantment creature, bird, glimmer, got it, bird, like Blombaro. Flying, when wing bright thief enters, target opponent reveals each non-land card in their hand. You choose one of them. That card perpetually gains when you cast a spell, each opponent draws a card and gains 3 life. Now, Azorius nowadays is getting Thoughtsy's effects. No, it's not really Thoughtsy's, but even if it's a 2-3 flyers that gets to Gitaxian Probe and your opponent and see each card in your opponent's hand, it's already good. You will play that card. 3 mana, 2-3, take a peek at your opponent's hand. That's already good. But this is that much more better than that. You get to choose one of them. That card perpetually gains. So forever, even if it's a creature and your opponent plays a creature and that creature gets bounced the hand, and then it still has this effect. So whenever that creature or that card, maybe it's a room, maybe it's an instant sorcery, whenever it gets cast, each opponent, and since it's your opponent's card, the opponent of your opponent, it's you. So you get to draw a card and gain 3 life. And that part is really good. So basically, you're putting your opponent in a tough choice. You're gonna say the best card in your hand comes at a really hefty drawback. If you cast this card, I get to draw a card and gain 3 life. I get to Uro all over the place. And if you do this, you're gonna be put in a really good advantage. It's a 2-for-1. It's a flyer. It's a 3 mana 2-3 flyer that immediately enters. It gathers information. A 2-for-1 is your opponent. You get to gain life. You get to draw an extra card. Because what is your opponent supposed to do? Not play their best card? Say, yes, my best card is my hand. I'm not gonna cast this card forever because my opponent is gonna draw a card. Doesn't matter. Obviously, if your opponent is a bomb, it's gonna play that bomb. You get to draw a card and gain 3 life. What if this card gets bounced to your hand or gets recurred? What if you are able to trigger this card multiple times? At that point, this card becomes busted. Obviously, it's not really all that great in a top deck war. Once both yours and your opponent's ends get depleted and those are empty, so you don't have any targets anymore. Yes, that's a real drawback, but you're getting all of this on top of an already playable card. You're already gonna play a 2-3 flyer for 3 in Azorius colors, since it's also an enchantment. And it triggers Eerie, so it doesn't really come at a cost. So, if you're Azorius, if you are blue-white, you're gonna pick this card really, really high, like probably first to second to third pick, since this card is a B+ / A- level card. If you're gonna splash for this card, not really. This card is really phenomenal on turn 3, and it does get diminishing returns the more the game goes onwards. So, if you're in green-blue and you have to splash in order to accommodate this card, don't really go for it. But if you have a really good mana base, it's not really all that unreasonable to splash this card in like blue-red and go Jeskai Rooms. Jeskai Rooms is a really solid archetype that's only held back by the mana base. So you have to get 2, 3, 4 dual lands in order to enable a 3-color deck in this format, or it's not really all that common. So this card really all that fine. And this is the last gold card. We reviewed all of them. For any of you that stayed with me, bear with me up until this very moment, I'm gonna give you my most sincere thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just started this channel. I'm gonna giving you my best to give you uh, the best of limited insight, and all of my efforts will be pushed to give you a top tier, top notch, top quality content. So, my sincere thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, for the last card, we're gonna go really fast because this is a motorcycle and it's gonna go fast on its own. It also has haste, so how can you go faster than this? It's a vehicle, a 2-mana 2/2 vehicle, artifact vehicle, haste. Whenever one or more other creature die, Soul Shredder perpetually gets +1/+1. This ability also triggers if Soul Shredder is in your graveyard. Crew 1, sacrifice 2 creatures, return Soul Shredder from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So, this card is busted. This card is A+. It's not really S tier, it's A+ tier. You should first pick this over most rares in the set. What is this? This is a vehicle, so it's a creature, it's an hasty creature that is not susceptible to sorcery speed removal. That part is already good. It's the Smuggler Sculptor clause. We have already seen this and constructed many times and time again. Vehicle decks are not prone to sweepers, and etc. Then, whenever one or more creature die, other creature die, it perpetually gets +1/+1. So it gets a boost with each morbid trigger. Each creature dying. Not only non-token, also tokens. A Glimmer dying, this card gets +1/+1. 2/1 is dying, this card gets +1/+1. And it gets +1/+1 if it's on the battlefield, and also if it's in our graveyard. Not either on the battlefield or in the graveyard. It triggers in your battlefield, and if somehow gets destroyed by a destroy target artifact, there's one card that destroys target artifact in the set, or maybe you block with this on turn 4, gets traded, goes to the graveyard. In the graveyard, it keeps triggering over and over again, and 10 turns later, this card is a 12/12 hasty vehicle, and at that point, you're gonna sacrifice 2 creatures, even 2 good creatures. You're gonna sacrifice a 3/3 and a 4/4 to get this card back, since it's a 2/2 hasty creature, 12/12 hasty creature, and crew it with something, a random Glimmer token, and swing your opponent's face for 12. Does your opponent have a chump blocker? Yes? No? Your opponent is dead all of a sudden by a card that was supposed to be traded 10 turns prior. So, this card is really good. It's really good in mid-range attrition-y black mid-range decks. It's also really good in green-white specifically because it's a vehicle, so it crews. You get to tap one of your creatures pre-combat, not expose the creatures to combat, and trigger Survivor in the second main phase, regardless. So, but it's really good in any deck. Like, if you have creatures, play this card. And you're supposed to have creatures. Except for blue-red rooms where you have 12, 14 rooms, you're gonna have creatures. Creatures are gonna be played, creatures are gonna die. So if you play a regular game of Magic, this card is gonna be gigantic, and by the time this card is gonna be gigantic, even if it dies, if your opponent plays Murder, Instant Speed Interaction for this card, you're still gonna have this card from your graveyard for free. No, not for free, you're gonna sacrifice 2 creatures, but the payoff is that much greater than 2 random creatures. So this card is A+. It's gonna get picked over most of the rares from the regular set. Now, only spellbooks are left. We've already seen this last time. So, we've gone through each and every card out of this set. Now, which is the best card out of Alchemy Duskmourn in Limited? My choice is between two cards in particular. Maybe three, maybe three. My pick is Lurker in the Deep. This card is bonkers phenomenal, as we've seen last time. Verdant Dread. This card is basically a pack rat on turn 2. You're gonna have to get to 5 mana, but once you get to 5 mana, it's basically impossible to lose except if you mill yourself out. So if you have something like a Cathartic Parting or the Chandelier to prevent yourself from self-milling, this card wins on its own. And then my third pick is the Golden Sidekick, because this card wins games on turn 2, and it's an uncommon. This card should have been a rare. Yeah, this and this should have been switched in rarity. And maybe this card could have been kept in check, because this card in turn 2 is bonkers levels of stupidity. So these are my 3 picks for best card in Limited. I'm not saying anything about Constructed. I don't know all that much about Constructed. The only thing I know about Alchemy Constructed is that the One Ring has rotated out of the format alongside with Erasco and Oracle of the Alpha and a lot of obnoxious Esper mid-range cards, so the format is playable again. Not that I have not enjoyed playing those. I really enjoyed playing Esper mid-range because it was busted as a deck, but I'm also glad those cards rotated out of the format. So this is Alchemy Duskmourn for you. I hope you stayed with me for all this time. I hope you got the chance to familiarize with those cards and see what's good and what's not. Now, bear in mind, this is a preview, so I haven't played with those cards yet. So maybe a card I'm telling you it's really good, it's not all that much. And I'm talking specifically about the Razor Demon. Maybe it's a chap, maybe it's not, who knows, maybe this is a chap, maybe it's not, maybe this is a chap, it's not really all that easy to enable, who knows. But as a preliminary sight of those 30 cards that are gonna be added on Arena, that are added already on Arena because Alchemy Duskmourn has already been released, there's that. So now you have my sincere opinions about this set. Yet again, I'm gonna thank you, all of you, each and every one of you, for staying with me for this much time. From now onwards, check out this channel. I'm gonna play a lot of Limited. I'm gonna post a lot of adjusts, so actual factual gameplay. This is the last of the Limited review up until Foundation. That's gonna release on mid-November rather, 15th or 16th of November. I don't really remember. So see you next time. Next time will be with a nice and sweet Alchemy draft. I don't know yet if it will be regular Duskmourn or Alchemy Duskmourn. Gonna see. So see you next time, and thank you. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the other videos from this channel, and see you next time. Have a nice day.